Considering planting a church? That is awesome. But before you dive in though, I want to talk to you about how important it is to conduct a psycho and demographic study of the community that you're called in coming up. My name is Larry Williams. I am the CEO of Next Level Church Marketing. I've had the privilege of partnering with over 100 churches in the US and Canada. And I have also been a part of every level of church staff that you can be, and have had the privilege of seeing over 1,000 people baptized and giving their life to Christ. Today, I want to talk to you about the 4 benefits of conducting a demo and psychographic study of your community when you are planting a church. Now, when we're planning a church, we're all very excited about the way in which God is going to use us, and we begin to have all of these visions and plans of what is in the future. It is a great time, but it's also a very stressful time because you're not sure exactly how well or how much your service or your church is going to be received in the community that you are planting it in, which creates a lot of anxiety and a lot of stress in the church planter, the one that is risking so much of their life to go and plant in that community that you are called to. And I would even say this to people who are planting in the community that they already live or very much familiar with. A lot of times when we live somewhere, we feel like we know that community backwards and forwards. And while that may be true, I do believe that a demo and psychographic study of the community is going to make it that much more effective in your approach when you do plant. So what is a demographic and a psychographic study? It's basically a report that you receive from usually an outside data gathering organization that's going to give you the insights and the trends of the community in which you're planting. They're going to give you the average age of the community you're planting, the income, the voting trends, the race and ethnicity. There's going to be so many different various pieces of information that you're going to receive from this report, but it's ultimately just there to give you some data and some stats on what that community is like and what people in that community, what their trends seem to be, what their interests are. And I think that's very, very important for the church planter. And I'm going to give you the 4 benefits of conducting a demographic and a psychographic study of your community. The first benefit of doing this is it's going to allow you to have more targeted outreach. I ask a lot of church planters and pastors in general when they begin to work with me. I run a marketing agency for churches, and usually when I begin a relationship with the church, I ask them this simple question, like, who are you called to in your community? Like, who are you trying to reach? And usually the answer is everyone. But here's the problem. It sounds good, right? Preach the gospel to every creature. It sounds really good. It sounds really spiritual, but it's actually quite foolish, because when we try to reach everyone, we end up reaching no one. If we look at the scripture and what the scripture shows us, that's not really the approach that most of the apostles or even Jesus had. There was a story in the scripture where a woman comes to Jesus and she asks for her daughter to be healed. And Jesus said something very interesting when she said that. He said, I am called to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. So when she came to him, she was not a Jewish woman, but when she came and she asked for him to help her, he told her, I'm not called for you all right now. I have a very specific mission. I have a very specific calling to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Even if we look beyond Jesus, Peter had a very specific ministry to the Jewish community. Paul had a very specific ministry to the Gentile community. And we see so many different instances of these people in scripture, and they had a very specific calling. Even if we look at the way scripture was conducted, the Gospels, for instance, we know that Matthew was very specifically written to a Jewish community. We know that Mark was written to the Roman community. We know that Luke was written to the Greek community, and John was a universal book to everyone. But each of these things should show us the importance of targeted outreach. We understand, especially in the world that we're living in today, we have so many voices, so many competing voices. In order for our voice and our ministries and our organizations to stick out, we have to be very specific. I can even point to my own agency. When I began my agency back in 2019, I was to everyone, anybody that would pay me, anybody that would work with me. I would work with them, whether it was a realtor, whether it was a lawyer, doctor, dentist, you name it, I'll work for them. And it wasn't until about a year in that I began to say, maybe I need to target my agency to a specific crowd. And that's when I began to work specifically with ministries and churches. And that's when I began to see my agency begin to be blessed and more effective. And I've been able to get more results for the people that I worked with. So the principle is universal. When we target our outreach and focus our service on a specific group, it's going to allow us to be more effective. And it's not to say you're excluding anybody from joining your church. That's not what we're saying. However, what we are saying is when we do target and we do focus, and who is my ministry most likely to have a better impact? Which group can I most effectively disciple based on my background, based off of, the things that I've gone through? Maybe you have a rough background that was, you were in the streets and you were involved in maybe a life of crime before giving your life over to Christ. Well, that might be a segue to focusing and finding people who have a similar background to yours, because your testimony is going to be more effective in reaching that specific type of person. So we want to know who will be the most impacted by my story that God has given to me. And that's going to be a bridge that will allow you to do more discipleship and more intentional focus, because you built that bridge through your narrative, through your story. And that's what's going to allow you to be more effective. So targeted outreach is one of the benefits of conducting a demographic and a psychographic study. So when you go and look at that study, you're able to find, do these types of people live here? Finding out what the background of the people who live here and building a strategy to reach those people. Having that data is going to give you more confidence in building out a strategy, because that there is a group here that can benefit from the story that God has given to me. So that's number one, targeted outreach. Number two is effective communication. And this really ties into the first one. So once you know who you're reaching, you're able to build and craft your communication. You're able to know, okay, these types of sermons, these types of Bible studies, these types of programs will be the more effective to them. When I'm letting people know about the church that we're starting, I'm able to speak specifically to a specific individual and not just to everyone. Because again, like I said before, if you try to reach everyone, you're going to end up reaching no one. So you want to make sure that who you're reaching and who you're communicating to is someone specific. And you start there, but then you can begin to expand. But you want to make sure that you're communicating to a specific type of person, because that's what's going to allow you to get more results down the road. And then as that core begins to build, those people are going to reach more people, and it's going to allow you to have a bigger impact on your community. So I don't want you to think like you're limiting yourself, or that I'm not going to be able to reach everyone. When you try to reach everyone, you're not going to reach everyone. But when you try to reach a specific person, it's going to allow you to have a bigger impact on more people from there. So just keep that in mind, that when we are communicating to our target group, that we're thinking with the end in mind. We're not just thinking about them. We're thinking about who they can end up reaching and allow us to have a bigger impact. So more targeted communication. Number three is relevant programming. So again, if I know that the people that are going to be the most connected to my voice, they need, maybe help with their substance abuse, or maybe people who would be most connected to my voice, maybe many of them are divorced or have experienced divorce. Well, we can know based off of having a more strategic approach that maybe we need to create a divorce recovery program, or maybe we need to emphasize children's ministry, because we're reaching families in our community. So we want to make sure that we have a children's community, children's ministry that is going to be effective in building up the entire family. Or maybe single mothers. If you're reaching single mothers, you want to make sure that you have a plan on how you can best benefit those individuals and build programs that are going to better benefit to those communities. A lot of times the reason why our programs don't work in our church is because there's not a market for them in our community. community. So we want to make sure that what we're trying to do, whether it's a homeless feeding program or any type of program that's going to benefit our community, we want to make sure that there are people out there that actually want that type of service. And when we do the research first and see, oh, there's these types of people, oh, there's these types of people, we will benefit. We will make sure that that what we're doing, what we're spending our resources on, are actually going to reach those individuals that we're trying to reach. So that's really important. And then finally, doing this report will help us to cultivate a more welcoming environment. Doing this report and doing this research is going to help us to cultivate a more welcoming environment. So what do I mean by this? When we know who we're targeting, we can think ahead and know, okay, what type of environment do we need to set up, and that's going to make sure that these people feel the most welcome, right? Like, for instance, if I know that many of the people that I'm reaching may have, disability or handicap, I'm going to make sure that the parking lot is set up in a way that's going to accommodate for that. I'm going to make sure that bathrooms are going to be set up in a way that's going to be the most accommodating for that. I'm going to make sure that the way the sanctuary is set up is going to be set up in a way that's the most accommodating for that specific issue. So it's really an issue of hospitality. We want to make sure that we're hospitable to the people who are coming. And there is a real great first impression when I know that the people that I'm going and I'm taking time out of my week to come and worship with you, when I know that you thought of me and you thought of my needs and you made sure that you accommodated for what I needed from you. That there's just something very powerful about that when we experience, and we know that just think about it, even beyond church, when you go to a restaurant, when you know that that restaurant did the little things to accommodate you, right? Maybe the restaurant knows that a lot of young families with little children were there. And when you go there, they have toys that they give to your child or your baby or something like that, that they really thought about your needs. It makes you feel better about them. It makes you want to give them a good review. It makes you want to give a good tip. It makes you want to tell other people about them. It's the little things that really will help you to make to really want to support and champion that organization or that restaurant or that church. And when you are able to know the type of person that you're reaching, you're able to cultivate a better environment for them to come and be comfortable. It's about hospitality. And I think it's really important that churches, especially if you're planting a church, that you want to emphasize, how do we make sure that they feel comfortable? It's not necessarily you're trying to appease every aspect of their life and you don't want to preach the gospel to them or let there be any level of conviction if they're not living in a way that's pleasing to God. However, you can be hospitable with them and still preach the gospel. They're not two separate things. You can do both. So it's important that we understand that making sure that we think through what we're doing, and we want to make sure that we are being as hospitable as possible to the people who are coming to our church. And the way you're able to do that in a more effective way is if you know the person that you're reaching and you have the data that shows that there is actually people in this community that meet that criteria. So let me review. These are the 4 benefits of conducting a demo and psychographic study in your community. Number 1, you're able to do targeted outreach. Number 2, effective communication. Number 3, relevant programming. And number 4, cultivating a welcoming environment. These are very powerful things that will allow your ministry to be more successful when you plant. So what I want to offer to you, if you've watched to the end of this video, is a free resource that me and my agency created, the Ideal Disciple Discovery Process Checklist. The Ideal Disciple is a program that we designed designed for church planters and other ministries that helps them to discover who their ideal disciple is and build a strategy to reach them. And we want to offer you a free checklist of what the types of things that you would want to have in order to effectively reach your ideal disciple. So please follow us, subscribe to our YouTube channel and wherever else you're watching this, and let me know, have you done a demographic study of your community, and how has that impacted what you've been able to do and how effective you have been in reaching your community? Comment below and look forward to seeing you on the next video. God bless.